Hello, this is Dr. Mary, and today I want to continue talking to you about story, but I want to get back to relationships because remember earlier in one of my talks I talked about how everything in life is about a relationship. You have a relationship to your car, your shoes, your house, people, of course, to your pets, to everything. And if you recall, I said that everything else is story. And the important thing to know about a relationship, because I want to continue to show how story affects a relationship also. But like I said, one of the most important things you want to remember about relationships are there to show you who you are and who you are not. Because how you learn yourself, because a lot of times we don't know who we are, is through relationships and how we interact with people, things, situations, and like I said, what's going on in our mind, in our story, what our head is telling us, what our story is telling us. And so one of the things I want to focus on today, because I really want to talk about, and start talking about the dynamics of a relationship. And in the dynamics of a relationship, when you look at, I want to look at things that can take away from a relationship, take away from your freedom, your love, your joy. Because like I said, as over the years, as I've worked with people, and I always ask them what do they want, and they, and a lot of the three most common things I hear is, I want love, I want to be happy, and I want free. I want to be free. And so, like I said, one of the things that can take you away from your freedom in a relationship is dishonesty, is deceit, or putting on a charade. And I want to kind of break that down, because it's like anytime and anytime like we meet somebody, whether it's for a friendship or for an intimate relationship or for just a casual relationship, anything, it's how we start that relationship out. And I hear a lot of times, especially in intimate relationships, or or relationships with our partners, people will say they've changed, or I know a lot of you have heard the saying that people get married and they say after they get married and they've been together for a while, then the real person shows up, or people say this is not who I married. Because a lot of times when we meet somebody, and especially when we're looking for a partnership or a love partnership, we don't feel like we can be our true authentic self. And if you start a relationship in deceit and not being your true authentic self and who you really are, then you have to keep it up. And what I mean by that, let's give an example of, like I heard somebody today say, well, when I met my wife that I have now, one morning she asked me to go to the gym 5:30 in the morning. I don't even work out, but I loved her so much. I was up at 4:45 driving. I was at her house at 5:15 to get to the gym. But then, after that, they got married and into a relationship, and she wanted to continue. I thought you like working out, or working out, or taking care of yourself, and it becomes kind of an issue in a sense, or in a way that, like for example, I know like a lot of women, men. A lot of men love sports, love football, basketball, whatever. So, I've had a lot of my friends say, all he do is come home and watch sports, or sitting in front of the TV watching sport. But when you met him, that's what he was doing. And you were sitting there doing it with him, because you pretended that You liked it. So you have to understand that. And so the same thing it took to get you to song, the same thing it took to get your baby is going to take the same thing to keep them. But like I said, but then it becomes work, because then you become resentful because that's all he does. But it's like a lot of times, I'll have clients that will complain to me about, well, all he do is play video games, or he does this, or or all she does is do this. And I ask them, I say, well, when you met them, were they doing that? And they'll say, well, yes. And I said, so did you think it was going to change? Do you think a piece of paper is going to change something? You have to be authentic in the beginning. You have to, okay, if you don't like sports, that's okay. Well, I watch sports with you sometimes, but can we do something else? That way you being honest, you being upfront. Because like I said, and I hear people so often say, relationships are a lot of work. Well, that's where the work comes in, is because you are not being honest about something. You're being deceitful, or you putting on a charade, like, like I like this. And a lot of times, and some of it is because I'm going to relate it to a story, go back to a story, because sometimes, and I just gave simple examples, but sometimes it's a lot deeper, because sometimes we don't feel like who we are is enough. So I can't let this person know, who I really am, that maybe I might, suffer through depression sometimes, or, maybe I don't like this, or, a lot of maybes. You have to know what your maybe is, and like I said, I had a client who she'd been married for 15 or 16 years, and they were getting a divorce, and she said that her husband called her names, because I don't really want to use profanity, but it was a profane name. The witch word with a B. And when I looked at her and I said, well, I mean, in his eyes, you are that, in the sense that, and I tried to explain to her, for all these 15 years, you've been catering to him, you've been waiting on him, you've been cooking, you've been cleaning, you've been doing all these things. And he's been doing what he do. Come home, sit in the chair, drink beer, watch TV, play games. You picking up behind him. You doing everything for the kids. And you never said anything about it. Then all of a sudden it becomes a problem. And in his mind, he can't figure out what the problem is, because he didn't change. He been doing what he's been doing for 15 years. So why all of a sudden it's a problem? Because you never said anything about it. And so what happened, to you, is you started to become resentful. You started to become angry, all those things, because you started to feel, well, he doesn't do, but he never did. So you have to understand that you're the one that changed. He didn't. And that's why I always tell clients, when I'm talking to clients about dating and about relationships, about knowing who you are and being truthful to yourself. When you start out that relationship, well, you got to clean up sometimes. You got to help me. You start out that way, instead of, oh, well, this is the woman's job. She's supposed to cook. She's supposed to clean. Or even in a friendship, you have a friendship with somebody, and it's like, well, where do you want to go? What you want to do? Always whatever. And then, after a while, you start to they always want to do what they want to do. But, every time they ask, you like, well, it's whatever you want to do. So you have to see that, and like I said, and that's when relationships become a lot of work, and they become painful. Like I said, you in resentment and anger and all those things set in, because for some reason, like I said, either you don't know who you are or what you like or what you want to do, because like I said, a lot of times that's what relationships show you too. And you can adapt and adjust in a relationship as you go along in that relationship. You can say, well, you know what? I really don't like going to the gym, or I don't want to always be the one that cook or clean up or pick up the kids. Can you do it sometimes? But sometimes we're afraid because a lot of times we have a story in our head that, oh, I'm not good enough. They may leave me. Or whatever your story is. But it's a story there behind it. You always have to understand that. It's something behind that. And like I said, and then like I said, and you become angry too, especially when that person is not fulfilling something that's in you, that you need to be fulfilled. For example, when you feel like, this is a one-sided relationship, I'm the one that's always giving. I don't get anything. What story are you telling yourself? Do you feel like you deserve to get anything? I really want you to get that because, like I said, that's where the work comes in, where the work, now becomes, like I said, work or hard. I hear people say, oh man, this relationships are hard, they're a lot of work. But if you always honest, if you always self-correct, if you, and like I said, when you relate to a person, that's how you get to know yourself. And like I said, you can self-correct. Then it doesn't become so much work or the resentment or all those other things that set in, pain set in, your anger set in, and it takes away from your peace, your joy, all the things that you said that you wanted. That's why you don't have, because that stuff, it takes away from your peace, your joy, your love, and you got to understand that you are important. That everything starts and ends with you. Everything comes back to you. Because you are all that is. You got to understand, you are important. You are love. You are all those things. And you got to get that. You don't have to compromise yourself in a relationship. You don't have to put up with things that make you unhappy because you want a relationship with somebody, or you want love, or you want those things, because you are those things. And that's what you have to understand. You are so important. Everything that exists on this earth is because of you. Even God, sometimes I tell people, do you know that God wouldn't even exist without you? Because have you ever seen God? Have you ever touched him? You haven't. So he exists only because of your belief in him. That's just how important you are. You don't have to be deceitful or dishonest in any type of relationship. I remember, in a relationship that I had many years ago, and it didn't work out. And it was a very painful relationship for me. But I remember, with this person, when I looked at it, I would say, oh, he's a liar. He played games. He was dishonest. He did this, he did that. But then I had to, like I said, whenever I see a trait or see a trait in somebody else, I always bring it back to myself and say, okay, where was I being dishonest or deceitful? Because if I see it in them, I was doing the same thing. Because a lot of times, when something don't work out, or we want to try to make the other person the bad guy. Just like, my client, when I had to explain to her, well, like I said, he hadn't changed. You had. You've been putting up with all that stuff all these years. And you became resentful and angry. You started to dislike him, all those things. And so, like I said, you have to look at, or I have to look at, where have I been dishonest? And when I started to look at that, I saw that, I was dishonest too, because I didn't tell that person how I really felt, number one. And number two, I was doing things that I didn't like to do. And number three, I did things that went against everything that I believed in too. You know, and that's a lot of things a lot of times I see that with, you know, clients that I talk to that have been married to somebody for over 20 years and they get a divorce and they are so angry, you know, and resentful. And you know, when I sit and I talk to them, it's because they compromised themselves all those years, you know, well, I stayed there for the kids or for this or for whatever reason, you know, or because I wanted a husband or I wanted this, you know, when you compromise yourself and it doesn't work out, one of the responses is going to be anger. Because like I said, you telling yourself some kind of story that I can't be who I am. Because I remember reading this book years ago, and it was called Why Am I Afraid to Tell You Who I Am? And as I read that book and I read it and it got to the end of the book, and I remember, I don't remember what the whole book said, but I remember this part. And it said, why am I afraid to tell you who I am? Because if I tell you who I am, you might not like who I am. And that's all I have. But so if a person doesn't like who you are, there's somebody else that will or that might. And you have to get that. You have to understand that. You know, and so the most important thing that I want you to get from this one of the things that I want you to get from this is look in your relationships to see where you being deceitful, to see where you compromising yourself, and then ask yourself why. You know, go back to ask yourself, what story do I think I'm not good enough? Do I think I'm not lovable? Do I think I'm not enough? Do I think who I am is not enough? You have to ask yourself those questions, because if you ever want love, peace, joy, happiness, freedom, all those things, that's one of the things you are going to have to do for sure. You know, ask yourself, you know, where am I being deceitful? Where am I not being my true, authentic self? And like I said, a lot of times we don't know who that is because we spend so much of our time trying to please other people, trying to make other people happy. Life was never meant to be a struggle. Relationships were never meant to be a struggle. Because remember, you know, like I said before, you are love. You are all the things that you're searching for. And you can have those things. But you got to understand, everything comes back to you. And like I said in my last video, everything in your life is about you. Everything in everybody's life is about them. When I say you, I mean everybody. Everything in my life is about me. It's about my story. You know, and one of the things that relationships teach you too is about your story. And I want to say this quote again that I said last time, and I have to pick it up because I don't quite remember what that quote was, but I know I want to repeat that quote because, you know, oftentimes I go back to that, and it was the Persian philosopher Rumi, and he said, your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. You seeking yourself. And if you understand that, man, I tell you, you will have the most wonderful, beautiful life that you are. And you will see that you are beauty. See, God, he made the earth, the sun, the moon, the stars. And he made you. He made man. And when he looked around, he said, it's all good. Everything that God made was good. So if he made you, then you are all good. And I want you to understand that. And like I always say, before I let go, is to remember you have to get to the heart of the matter, because the heart matters, because out of it flows your life. Thank you and have a great day.